First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak at this event. CIFOR is one of the most respected institutions in the forest world, and you are also excellent at providing arenas for good discussion. And in particular, thank you to Departing Director General Frances Seymour, whom I actually didn't meet until today, but whose reputation precedes her, I would say. Your dedication and commitment as Director General over the last several years has been outstanding, and I know that you've been a valued partner for the Norwegian Climate and Forest Initiative for years. Thank you. Allow me to make an initial point that I doubt if anyone in this room will disagree with. Forests are essential to the health of this planet, and the fact that they are rapidly lost is one of the greatest threats to our common future. For me, this intellectual insight is reinforced by personal experience. This skinny young man over there is actually today the Norwegian Minister of the Environment, even though you couldn't really imagine that looking at the picture. The picture is taken on my 2-month trip to Indonesia in 1997. I spent 3 months in Indonesian Borneo, in Kalimantan. I traveled upriver from the city of Samarinda and trekked through primary rainforest for 5 days, and also went out to the coast to one of the care centers for orang-utans, where this picture is taken. And 5 years later, in 2002, I went to Brazil. I spent 10 days in the Amazon near the town of Tefé, which is halfway from Manaus up to the border with Colombia, in one of the nature reserves there. And I'm mentioning this because at the time I had no real understanding, I would say, of the importance of forests, be it to climate change or biodiversity, but a great fascination of rainforests. And for me, valuing forests was also about connecting experiences to knowledge. This provided urgency to the science when it was brought to me at a later stage. Forests provide local, regional, and global ecosystem services that we all rely on. Forests are people's wealth, and in particular, poor people's wealth. Here in Brazil, ecosystem services account for almost 9/10 of the GDP of the rural poor population, with forest as a key component. I was able to see this only a few days ago myself when I returned to the Amazon region and visited one of the projects that the Amazon Fund is supporting there through a Brazilian NGO. The most valuable deliveries from forests is, in monetary terms, come from their regulating services such as carbon storage, erosion prevention, pollution control, and hydrological functions. 1/3 of all crop production depends on animal pollination, at an estimated value of more than $200 billion per year to the global economy. And forests are also crucial to the global rainfall pattern, and thus agriculture. The Congo Basin and Amazon rainforests affect rainfall patterns in the US Midwest, America's breadbasket. And lastly, in a climate change context, greenhouse gas emissions from deforestation and forest degradation account for approximately a sixth of global emissions, and potentially 1/3 of the cost-effective mitigation potential by 2020. Moreover, these are the values we know. There is reason to think, however, that the treasures of remaining tropical forests are yet largely undiscovered. I was recently astonished by new discoveries in the Amazon rainforest of fungi that are capable of eating plastic. They are adapted to decomposing the complex cellulose fibers of rainforest trees, And recent research has shown that they are also might be able to decompose other complex chemical structures like those present in plastic. Could this be the beginning of a booming plastic biodegeneration industry? The potential might be tremendous, but if we allow deforestation to continue, much of it will never be realized. For these reasons and others, combating the drivers of deforestation will be less costly than simply adapting to its consequences. From a scientific viewpoint, from a theoretical economic viewpoint, it is indisputable that preserving the world's tropical forests is integral to green economic growth. The problem, however, is that these values generated by forests are often not valued in economic terms. They are public goods and hence subject to tragedies of the commons and free rider challenges. Only concerted global action by government will change this. This has to happen, which is where the concept of REDD+ comes in, and I will return to that later. Deforestation, of course, is only one, though important, part of a larger challenge. Our current resource-intensive model of development is unsustainable. We are responding to growing demand with unsustainable resource depletion and resource distribution. And the challenges will grow. FAO estimates that on a business-as-usual trajectory, we will need to double food production by 2050. We are on a course towards 3 to 6 degrees increase in global temperature average, which will have catastrophic consequences on various counts, including our ability to feed a growing global population. And the costs of deforestation and forest degradation alone will likely cost the global economy more than all the losses in the 2008 financial crisis. Moreover, our resources are distributed with shocking inequality. More than 1 out of 7 still go to bed hungry. 1 out of 5 of the global us still lack access to electricity and live on less than $2 a day. We must adapt our ways to the carrying capacities of this planet and distribute the resources more fairly. And the only way to achieve that is to move toward a model of economic growth where the value of natural capital is fully integrated in economic and political decision-making by governments and by businesses and citizens alike. This, to me, is the essence of green growth, which of course means that a dichotomy between green growth and just growth is a false one. Just like you cannot take on a larger financial debt than you can handle, you cannot use natural resources, which is like taking up a loan from nature, beyond nature's capacity to renew itself. However, done properly, green growth means prosperity and a better future. We know this can be done, and our hosts here in Brazil provide the best example. They have shown that it is possible to cut deforestation and achieve sustained high economic growth at the same time. Brazil has cut deforestation by about 70% since 2004, while growing the economy by about 30% and the value of agricultural output by about 20%. 2011 was the third year in a row that deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon was record low, far lower than anything registered since forest monitoring at the systemic level began in 1988. These reductions are delivering close to 1 billion tons of CO2 emission reductions annually, or up to 20 times Norway's total emissions. I think it is fair to say that only 5 or 6 years ago, few believed that the results we see today were achievable, and others are following the Brazilian lead. Indonesia's president, as we just saw here, has a vision to deliver a similarly groundbreaking achievement. He has pledged to cut greenhouse gas emissions by up to 41% by 2020. And 90% of this, more than 1 billion tons per year, will come from REDD+ and peatlands. At the same time, Indonesia aims to grow the economy by 7% per year, including aggressive growth targets for palm oil and agriculture. This combination is achievable and will, if put into place, be a good example of what green growth means. Indeed, the government is launching here in Rio a national REDD+ strategy which aims to clean up the licensing process, rationalize land use planning, divert new plantation to degraded land, spur productivity growth, and recognize the customary land rights of local people and local communities. As a first step in this direction, the President signed a 2-year moratorium on new licenses in primary forests and peatlands to give space for government reform. Guyana, a country with 85% forest cover and very low deforestation rates, has decided to leave 99.5% of its forest standing. The proceeds from their pay for performance climate and forest partnership with Norway they will use for investments to create a low-carbon economy. Likewise, the Ethiopian government has launched its climate-resilient green economic strategy with the goal of becoming a middle-income country by 2025 without increasing its emissions. If successful, Ethiopia and Guyana will provide the first countrywide examples of how to delink economic growth from growing greenhouse gas emissions. These countries have taken these bold steps because they see it in their own interest. Still, they should not have to discover these new pathways in isolation. This is why the concept of REDD+ is so important. In essence, this concept is about richer countries sharing the burden with developing forest countries wishing to manage their lands more sustainably, reducing greenhouse gas emissions from forests in the process. In Norway, I have to say, we are proud to have established strategic, result-based partnerships with these countries. I want to emphasize that these partnerships are fundamentally different from traditional development aid, though we are using official development assistance funds for the purpose. These are partnerships of equals, where both parties deliver and where our partners, I dare say, put far more on the table than Norway does. Our contributions are not gifts, they are contributions in return for results, payment for results. This, of course, also means that our partners must determine spending priorities as long as they are compatible with green growth and development. National strategies must be developed in inclusive and transparent processes, and all relevant stakeholders, not least indigenous people and local forest communities, must be fully involved in planning and implementation. We firmly believe that this partnership model is a viable and effective way forward on sustainable development. And Norway will continue to invest at scale in REDD+. And not only because we like trees and care about the climate. REDD+ is also a development choice, which is most of all crucial to people. Protecting forest is a means to this end and an objective in itself. It supports all 3 pillars of sustainability, we believe: environmental, social, and economic. We consider it indisputable that REDD+ should become a game-changing part of the global green transition. But for this to happen, developing countries, developed countries, companies and non-governmental organizations must come together in a grand coalition. And this entails a clear obligation for us all. While some brave leaders, as I have shown, moved ahead on their own with limited support, we know that the economic and political costs of REDD+ in the short term can be significant for the implementing countries. In return, they should be offered partnerships of equals and be compensated based on performance. This is the role mainly of developed country government, but possibly also for philanthropists and companies. Under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, we have established the framework we need to move ahead. And Norway believes that we cannot wait until 2020 to generate real, credible demand for large-scale verified emission reductions through reduced deforestation. Norway will continue to work on REDD+. We are prepared to continue and even scale up our climate and forest initiative as part of a multilateral mechanism for payment for verified emission reductions, provided that also other countries increase their contributions. A few $billion annually to reward emission reductions from forests in the years leading up to 2020 could have a transformative impact on an issue of the utmost urgency. Together we should be able to mobilize that, and remember, there is only payment if there is results. The case for REDD+, the way I see it, is overwhelming. The importance of forests is much more significant than we realized in Rio 20 years ago, or even in Bali just 5 years ago, and even more so than I really realized when I was in Kalimantan 15 years ago. We are increasingly realizing the importance of forests to us all, in particular for the poorest and most vulnerable, and we are increasingly able to account for the value forests and ecosystems in economic and political decision-making. We are obliged to succeed in ending deforestation for our fellow global citizens and for our children and our children's grandchildren. We cannot guarantee success, but we cannot fail because we didn't try hard enough. Thank you for your attention, and good luck with your event.